Hi, yeah, thank you, Tamsin and Ellie, for inviting us to talk today. I'm Amy and I'm a researcher at King's. And Julia, do you just want to introduce yourself?
Sure, I'm a research assistant at King's working with Amy and Eva, Dr. Eva Love, yeah.
Great. So Julia's going to share the slides, I think.
Okay. Can everyone see them well? Yeah.
Yeah,
I got them. Okay,
great,
awesome.
thank you. So we're going to be talking about some touchscreen tasks that we've been developing to measure learning, sensory and emotional development in preschoolers. Great, so developing reliable tests of cognitive, sensory and emotional processes can help us to understand a bit more about a child's individual relative strengths and difficulties. We hope that we can use this information to better understand an individual child's needs and what kind of support they may benefit from. So touchscreen devices offer a really child-friendly way to measure different cognitive processes. And a really good thing about touchscreen tasks at the moment is that they can also be delivered remotely, which is obviously a really good thing right now, where a lot of labs are limited in how much in-person testing they can do. But it's also useful in a broader sense to be able to reach children who might find it difficult to come into a lab environment, and also to be able to collect larger samples of data by delivering tasks remotely so children can do them at home. And we hope that by collecting large samples of data, we might be able to understand different cognitive processes and how these relate to different behaviours and clinical profiles. So at the bottom, there's just a picture of what the main homepage of our app looks like. And Julia, can you just go on to the next slide? So there are other touchscreen games that aim to measure different cognitive processes in children. So a little bit about why we think our games are different to some of these games that are already available is that we are aware that different children may require different amounts of instructions to be able to play the games. So we've got different stages where different children can have either more or less instructions depending on the amount of practice or information that they require to be able to play the tasks. So this is kind of carried out in different stages. So we've got a familiarization stage where the tasks are acted out non-verbally in the first instance. And we hope that this will be really helpful for children who may have language difficulties to be able to understand the tasks. Then we then have different demonstrations of each task. So we have a demonstration where a cartoon scientist demonstrates the task to the child. We also have a demonstration which the parent will do. So the parent will demonstrate the task to the child on the touchscreen app before the child has a chance to do it. And then we also have different practice trials where the child can have a practice of doing the task before they actually do the task for real. And we try to make this as flexible as possible. So we have inbuilt questions throughout the app where we ask parents how their children got on with various stages. So did they watch the demonstration? Did they understand the instructions? So to make it quite flexible, so depending on the amount of instructions that each child requires, we can kind of adapt the task so that they can have even more or less instructions, so that we can hopefully include a really broad range of children in the study. We hope that these instructions that we've allowed will allow us to include children with different neurodevelopmental conditions and also with different learning difficulties. And we've also kind of designed the games in a kind of, it's called Pip's World. So all of the games are kind of tied together in this cartoon world with Pip, who's a cartoon character, and all his different friends who are brain explorers. And they're kind of integrated throughout the games, explaining different aspects of the games. So we hope it kind of ties the app together. We also have a task at the beginning of the app, which we call the bubbles task, where the child has to press bubbles as quickly as they can. And this helps us to kind of optimize the speed of certain games so that some of the tasks are actually tailored to the speed of the child, because we know that some children may have more or less experience with touchscreen devices. And so some children may benefit from the task being at a quicker speed, whereas other children may require the task to go at a slower speed. So again, this is to allow us to include children with different strengths and difficulties in the study. Yeah. So the app itself has 10 different games, which covers 6 different biobehavioral domains, which we believe are really important to children's development. So Julia will talk about this. Okay, I'll talk about this now, actually, sorry. I thought that slide was later. So we're looking at social and reward processing, emotional processing, executive functioning, unpredictability, and sensory processing. And each of the tasks that we've developed, so we've got 10 different tasks in the app at the moment, and these span across the different biobehavioral domains. So they look at different cognitive processes that we believe are important to children's development. Yeah, do you want to go on to the next? So this is an example of one of the tasks that's in the app. So this is a go, no go task. So we're looking at inhibitory control in this task. And this is just to give you an idea of how the tasks actually look in the app at the minute.
Yeah. Here we go.
This is Emma's puppy, who loves running around. Can you help her catch him? Don't touch the angry kitty. Remember, touch the puppy. Don't touch the angry kitty. This is Emma's puppy. Don't touch the angry kitty. Remember, touch the puppy. Don't touch the angry kitty. Now, your parent will show you how to play.
Yeah, so as you can see,
Remember, touch the puppy. Don't touch the angry kitty.
as you can see, if a child fails to pass the pre-test, it goes back to the demonstration, and we also collect all of this data to allow us to capture additional indices of child's incomprehension or learning. Okay.
Great. Thanks, Julia. So I think now Julia's going to go into a bit, oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's quite a long process.
Look, I have to touch the puppy. Don't touch the angry kitty.
Yeah, and finally, the child has a chance to actually practice before the actual game.
This is
Yeah, so do our tasks actually work? So we've now released our tasks to the App Store and to the Google Play Store, and to collect a lot of data remotely and actually assess whether the tasks are liked by preschoolers, neurotypical preschoolers, and preschoolers with autism. And we found they are completed by quite a high proportion of neurotypical children, so over 85%, as well as over 75% of children with autism, which kind of emulates what we've seen in the lab. So obviously, children with autism sometimes find some tasks a bit tedious or boring, but they still really enjoy the gamification. And what I'm going to talk a bit more about is the 2 tasks that measure sensory processing that we've developed in the battery. That and something like this has not been done before, because it's usually quite difficult to replicate the classical psychophysical paradigms that measure sensory processing in young children, because they require a large number of trials. But even though our tasks require only around 40 trials, we see a similar pattern in the data. So let me just demonstrate the tasks first. So this task measures tactile processing, so your ability to discriminate different stimuli, associate different touch stimuli, basically. And it is usually administered on devices that can vibrate, so Android, usually smartphone devices. and the children are presented with two different kittens that vibrate in different strengths, and they have to basically press on the kitten that purrs harder. So let me just.
Hi, I'm Theo, and I'll show you how this game works. Can you help me get the kittens to go to sleep? Look, this kitten is very sleepy. That's why it's purring harder. That kitten doesn't want to go to sleep, so it's purring lighter. Remember, click on the kitten that purrs harder to help them fall asleep.
So this is an example of a trial where a child would be presented with a kitten that's purring with a specific, I guess, strength of the vibration, and then they'll have to press on the kitten that purrs stronger, harder. And we believe that by measuring tactile and auditory processing in preschoolers, it can inform us about higher order cognition, because early level sensory processing in children with autism may influence whether they develop, for example, repetitive and restricted and repetitive behaviors, or may have problems with language. So this is our auditory processing task, which asks children to discriminate between two birds that sing at different frequencies. Okay, so sorry. So what do we actually see in our data? So the collected data from that we've managed to collect remotely is actually similar to data obtained from lab-based tasks. So we see a similar pattern that is seen in the classic paradigms that I've previously mentioned. So in the graph, you can see that the light blue responses are correct and the dark blue or black dots show incorrect responses. So we can see that every time the child has an incorrect response, they manage to learn, and this kind of pattern in data is called tracking, and it's what we usually see in tasks that measure sensory processing in young children. And this eventually allows us to establish their threshold, so the ability at which they're able to discriminate stimuli of different frequencies. So for example, this child's mean threshold would be 50 hertz, which is actually quite good. So what are actually our long-term objectives with this touchscreen battery, and where do we want to take the project? So we are currently developing 3 different apps that span children's development from the very early age. So the Pips World app intended for preschoolers, also all the way to adulthood. So I'm also involved in developing an app for school-age children called Time Trackers, where children explore time and space in this time machine. And the initial feedback that we've received has been very positive, and a lot of autistic children love the different games that they get to play. So we hope to be able to, in the future, I guess, create developmental trajectories, so be able to understand how sensory processing develops across all of those ages, and be able to administer the games to the same children at different time points. And this hopefully will allow us to have clearer developmental trajectories of how development in autism and ADHD, or children who have both of those conditions, develops. So this is what actually is also being done in a preschool brain imaging and behavior project that Amy is leading at King's, which is a longitudinal study that involves 5 different sites across Europe. So we'll be able to gather a lot of data from children with epilepsy and developmental delay as well, and understand whether our tasks measure a lot of different, all of those processes reliably. And finally, we're in the process of setting up a charity. So we hope to eventually utilize our Pips World app, as well as all the other applications, to help children and young people to reach their potential, understand what kind of strengths and difficulties they might have, and be able to build on those strengths, but also understand the support that they may require. For example, if they have sensory sensitivities, hypersensitivities, or if they have problems with language. So we hope to be able to identify those difficulties very early on with our app. And I want to thank all of our lab members who have been involved in developing the application, as well as artists who have provided the drawings and animations. And yeah, I want to thank Amy for her guidance in the project.
Thanks, Julia.
And if anyone has any questions, yeah, we're happy to answer any of your questions now, I guess.
Thanks, both of you. That's really interesting. Do you want to take your slide away so we can see everyone again? Yeah, perfect. Did anyone have any questions? I had one. Are you expecting the children who play these games to learn from them, or it's literally just you're tracking their development? So is the point that it's fun for the kids, or is the point that the kids are learning as they play?
The point is largely to track the development and for it to be fun to the children, but obviously our next goals are to relay those measures against other validated questionnaire measures and actually understand what will be the specific support that children might require when they perform well or badly on a specific task. And we obviously do see a learning effect in a lot of those games, which will, and we want to actually also understand why children learn faster, looking at test retest reliability between when they play, obviously on the second try. But it's largely designed to track development.
Okay.
Hi, just a quick question. What age do you recommend this app?
Yeah, that's fine.
I believe that for small children, it's not advised to be in front of screens. So which age group? I know you say preschooler, but it doesn't. I'm not from here, so okay. It doesn't really tell me what age it is.
Yeah, so it's between the ages of 2.5 and 6. That's our intended age range for this battery. And obviously, I do understand that parents want to limit the screen time that children are exposed to. But a lot of recent research shows that, I mean, I don't think the screens are as detrimental as media hypes it up to be. And based on what the parents have told us, an hour on an app that can actually be quite informative will probably not be as detrimental as watching cartoons for, I don't know, 5+ hours. But I do understand that there are quite a few concerns of using, I would say, technology to collect data, but that's actually the only way where we are able to do it now during this pandemic.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you.
We can also split up the tasks, so children aren't expected to play all the tasks in one go, so they could play one task one day. So it could be done in quite small amounts of screen time as well per day.
Okay.
It also seemed like because the parents are involved in the demo bits, it's more of a game for parent and child rather than child alone. Is that right?
Yeah, we hope so. So previously we were doing this in the lab, and me and Julia were also going to nurseries and we were doing it with the children. So we've done quite a lot of work over the pandemic to try and make it so that the task can be delivered at home with the parent and kind of engage the parent in the app as well, so that they do the demo trials with their child and then the child has a go. So that's hopefully quite an interactive, fun thing for a child and a parent to do together. Yeah. Well, we hope so anyway. We're in quite the early stages of remote data collection, but so far the feedback we've had from parents has been quite nice. So hopefully that will continue, but yeah.
I have a question. I was just wondering, how are the children who are at the younger bands, so around 2 to 3 years old, how do you find them playing with the app? Because I've worked with toddlers who are around 2 and 3, and I've found that some of them quite struggle with the iPad because they haven't got their motor movements and don't quite understand the tasks.
Yeah, exactly. So that's part of the reason that we built in those stages that I mentioned briefly, is because we found that as well, that some children, if they haven't had experience with a tablet before, they can actually find at the beginning actually pressing different things quite tricky. So that's why we try to account for that by kind of developing these like practice trials, so that if a child hasn't had much experience with a tablet app, they can kind of build their confidence and like learn how that, you know, to press the tablet in those practice trials before the real task actually begins. Because yeah, we found that as well in our testing, that some children either press too hard or they press too lightly, so it can take a little while at the beginning to kind of get that that touch correct with the touch screen. But we found that with these practice trials, that seems to be working quite well at the moment. But as I say, we are in quite the early stages of remote testing. So
yeah, and the figure that I've included in the presentation is actually from 2.5-year-old who played our auditory processing task, and I was quite surprised, yeah, how I guess intuitive it is for children, and how we can capture those processes that because I mean when we would go to nurseries in the beginning, I could see that I was a bit skeptical whether we can do it with 2.5-year-olds, but it is proving promising well when we added all of those additional stages and demonstrations. And that's why we're also hoping it will be quite intuitive for children with intellectual disability, because they will be able to develop, to be able to learn this response and apply it throughout the different tasks.
but I do agree that is an important thing for us to track as well. So we are collecting like qualitative feedback from parents as well. So hopefully if there are a lot of issues with some of the younger children having difficulties with the touch screen, then that will be also picked up in the qualitative feedback from parents.
Could I ask a question, please? At the beginning of that, my sound wasn't very good, so you may already have covered this. But you said that some children with autism were also in the study. Did you see any significant difference between the children with autism and the children normal doing the tasks?
So currently, I would say that the sample is too small to infer anything from, but because I believe we've only had over 10 children with autism who've played the newest version of the task with additional demonstrations, but they have been, I would say the completion rates were similar, so they have been completing the games, and the feedback was also, the qualitative feedback was positive from the parents, so I didn't see any differences yet, but as soon as we have a bigger sample, I'm going to conduct more analysis to actually look at specific tasks in more detail and look at why children might not be able to complete tasks in the first place. But so far it's largely comparable, but it is a very small sample.
Okay, thank you.
I had a question. Thanks for that, both of you. So you mentioned at the beginning of the app or whatever, you get them to touch things as fast as they can to then optimize the speed or whatever. So it's kind of more specific. That seems like a really good idea, but I just wonder if it's going to make your data quite quite messy. You're going to have lots of different like speed variables, or how you're going to, if you might not have thought about that particularly, how you'll deal with that.
Yeah, I guess it's for those tasks, it's about understanding an individual child's like relative strengths and difficulties. So I think it's more important that the individual children are playing the task at a speed that is appropriate for them. Then, because I think if a child was playing the task at a very slow speed and they could manage a much faster speed, they'd get bored very easily, so we wouldn't get reliable data. And the same if the task was going much too fast for a child who maybe needed it at a slower speed, again we probably wouldn't get reliable data because the task was just going too fast for them. So we don't use that on all of the tasks, it's just for the inhibitory controlled and sustained attention tasks where we think those variables would have really affected the data if we hadn't controlled for the speed of the task.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
And of course, yeah, in an analysis, I guess we will look at the effect of speed and hopefully there will not be an effect of speed on the performance because that will imply that it is, that we are actually by modulating the speed, we will not capture actual inhibitory control, but we'll just capture child's ability to respond to that particular speed. So we hope to account for that in the analyses. But yeah.
Sure, that makes sense. Thanks.
Does anyone else have any more questions? No. Well, thanks both of you. That was really interesting, and also super interesting for all of our researchers who are fast trying to work out how to do things, as you say, that research that can be done remotely and in people's homes is always really fabulous to hear about, especially when it appears to be successful. So well done. Should we play this song? I can't, all the screens are off, so I don't know if there's any toddlers listening. I think we're all university here, so I don't think we need to play a Peppa Pig Christmas song, which was what we were going to do, which obviously would have been amazing.
I mean, that sounds great.
Yeah. Do you want it, Amy?
You can send it to me after, Ellie. I'll
Okay.
A snip of it, I don't mind. No. Okay.
No, it's
all
fine.
right.
It's fine.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We'll post something with a link to the Pip and the Brain Explorers download. I just found it on the App Store, so it's definitely easy to get hold of if you're interested. And yeah, good luck to you guys. I hope loads and loads of people download it so you can get tons of data. And this is our last talk for this year, which is kind of crazy to think about, but we will be back in January. So please check the webpage and come back to listen to us in the new year. All right. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.